So next up we've got a very special speaker, Maya Evans, first person to be arrested, convicted of participating in an unauthorised demonstration in the vicinity of Parliament, if you please. We wrote a book about her experiences entitled Naming the Dead. Maya Evans, everybody. Thank you.
Hi, thank you very much. I've been asked to say something today about protest and why we should protest and why it's important for everybody here to protest. I'm speaking as somebody who's been an activist for a number of years, and I've been involved in many anti-war protests. Some of them involved standing in the rain with a few other individuals with a banner for many hours, feeling downhearted that what we were doing wasn't making a difference. And many times I thought to myself, what is the point of standing here? What is the point of protesting? Am I achieving anything at the end of the day? And I personally have taken a lot of heart in looking at history and what examples we can look at in history. And I'd like to share with you the example of a protest which took place in 1969 in Washington DC, called the Vietnam Moratorium. And this protest took place on the 15th of October 1969. 100,000 activists gathered in Washington to protest against the Vietnam War. And unknown to them, at that particular moment, President Nixon was thinking of dropping a nuclear bomb on North Vietnam in order to pressurize the Vietnamese guerrillas in the south into surrendering and ending the war at that particular moment. And this is a real possibility for Nixon at that point in time. He wanted to end the war, and he was going to do so through this nuclear ultimatum. And the protest which took place during October was so great and so forceful that his advisors told him, if you drop this nuclear bomb, there's going to be a huge wave of protest in this country. And it's because of that protest, which happened in October, that he decided not to drop the second nuclear bomb in history. And unknown to those protesters at that particular moment, they had averted a second nuclear attack in this world. So when I doubt what I'm doing, I think of examples like that in history, and I think, although I don't know what I'm doing at this particular moment, I hope that in the future what I'm doing makes a difference. I think I'd like to share with you also my personal experience of being arrested opposite Downing Street 2 years ago. And at that particular moment I thought it was just another anti-war protest which I was attending, and it wouldn't be much of a big deal. And much media coverage occurred after that protest, because I happened to be the first person convicted under a new piece of legislation. And many people wrote to me in support. And one particular letter which stands out in my mind is a letter from a World War II veteran who said that he had never been politically active in his whole entire life. He'd fought in the war, and he'd gone along with what this country had asked him to do in fighting in the war, but he'd never been politically active. And upon reading the story about my protest and my arrest, he had written to Tony Blair and he had written to Ian Blair saying how he disagreed with this piece of legislation and how he was outraged about my arrest. And for me, I took great heart in the fact that I had personally experienced somebody at first hand who had become politically active as a direct result of my actions. And although at that particular moment when I was arrested I had no idea that there were going to be any political repercussions, I'm now very proud to see that there were political repercussions, and many people have been inspired by my arrest and my work since then. I think I'd like to say now about our role as activists. Everybody who's here today is an activist. An activist is somebody who cares, and an activist is somebody who wants to do something to stop another war from happening. And we say to ourselves, how do we stop another war from happening? And the way to stop another war from happening is to remember what is going on in this current war, and to keep on telling the truth about what is happening in this current war. At the moment, the death toll in Iraq is 1.2 million. There are 4 million Iraqis who have been displaced, both in Iraq and externally in Syria and Jordan. We have, as individuals in this country, we all have a responsibility to do what we can to remember what's happening to these people, and to campaign for these people, and to pressurise our government to pursue a peaceful foreign policy. So our roles as activists doesn't end today when we leave this room. We need to go away and we need to gather as grassroots communities. We need to write to our MPs. We need to write to men. We need to write to the people in power. I nearly said men there, which is mainly is the majority. We need to write to people in power, and we need to say that we're no longer willing to accept war, and we're not going to accept the foreign policy of this country, and we will protest to stop another war from happening. Now, educate yourself about what's going on in the world, and educate your friends and your neighbours, and stand up against another nuclear threat, and against another war, and against the death of hundreds of thousands of people.